morning, everyone. It's lovely to be with you today. And I said to the ladies yesterday at the ladies' meeting, coming to Cornerstone feels a little bit like a home away from home. I first met Marcus when I was 16 years old on a mission in Zambia. And so we've known Marcus and Adele for a number of years. And Steve and I met. I was born and raised in Pietermaritzburg, and at 14 I joined a youth, and Steve was leading the youth. He was 18 at the time, and so we became friends, went on missions together, which is a great way to get to know someone. And we got married a couple of years later, and we served in that church for about 10 years together, and then we felt God moving us to a new place, and so we moved to Hillcrest, and we have been there for almost 13 years. So the church that we're part of is called City Hill Church, and we love it there. There's no perfect church in the world, I don't believe, but it's about where God plants you, and wherever God plants you, that's family and that's home. So yeah, thank you for having us today. We have 3 children. We have a 20-year-old who's 196 centimeters high. That's our oldest son, and then we have an 18-year-old and a sweet little 11-year-old girl, and that's our family. And I'm handing over to my favorite preacher in the world.
Good morning. It's really good to be back here at Cornerstone Church, and I want to thank the eldership team for the invitation. It's a tremendous benefit that we have as churches here in South Africa, but also around the world, that partner together to know that while we're doing our thing in our space, you guys here in Johannesburg, us down in Durban, God is doing a big thing all over the world. And it's been a tremendous privilege to hear stories in other nations and personally visit some different areas and see what God is doing. I was in Armenia at the end of last year. It's my 3rd visit there, and a couple that we met, a South African couple, had been there for a couple of years and decided to plant a church, and have done that in partnership with us as NCMI. And to hear the stories of salvations, people that came from different religious backgrounds that God has radically brought to faith in Christ has been just truly amazing. So thank you, Lord, and it's great to partner with you guys. And this morning, I brought along a bunch of keys. Now, because I'm traveling, this isn't my other bunch is at home, but these 2 little keys and that little remote, it's tiny little key, starts a car engine, the car I'm driving here. That's an even smaller key. It opens the door to the place that I'm staying, and that tiny little red button on the remote opens a massive security gate to let me in. And the point is sometimes small keys open really big doors. Small keys open really big doors. And when you're reading in the Bible and hearing teaching at church and people throw things out, just by the way, sometimes we miss the profoundness of the keys that are being thrown, that are available to us, and the doors that they unlock. And this morning I'd like to talk about one such key, and it's the key of service. So my title this morning is The Power of Service. The Power of Service. There's a story related to Jesus' life which really challenges me. It comes from Matthew chapter 20, and it starts like this. It says, "Then the mother of Zebedee's sons came to Jesus with her sons, and kneeling down asked a favor of him." Now, if you are relatively new to the Bible stories, this mother and these 2 sons have been referenced all the way through the Gospels. Jesus had 3 of the 12 that were the closest to him, Peter, James, and John. James and John were brothers, and they were big grown men. These were adult men. They were fishermen in their previous life. And their mom comes with her 2 big sons, James and John, and says to Jesus, I've got a favor to ask of you on behalf of my boys. And Jesus answers, "What is it you want?" he asked. So she says, "Grant that one of these 2 sons of mine may sit at your right and the other at your left in your kingdom." Now, there's a whole lot just in those 2 verses. At one level, the amazing heart of moms for their children, young and old. Just always wanting the best for their kids. And so these grown men, they're nodding in the background, by the way. This isn't mom just operating on her own little private conversation with Jesus. There the boys are, yeah, we've had a family discussion, and out of everybody you know, Jesus, we feel best suited to, in your future kingdom, the throne on your right and the throne on your left. We'd like to be the two guys there. That's what this lady is saying. In essence, what she is after, if you read between the lines and the rest of the story, is she says, I'm looking for greatness for my boys. Prominence, position, and associated with that power. So I'm looking for power, prominence, and position for these two amazing young men. And so I think they should have a throne on your right and on your left. Now it goes on to say in verse 24, when the 10, that's the rest of Jesus' disciples, heard about this, they were indignant with the two brothers. Why? Maybe before answering the why, let me ask you a question. Let's say that you were one of the rest of the 10. Jesus has handpicked 12 people to start his ministry with, to mentor, for them to grow and take the message on. And you were one of the other 10, and you hear that these two brothers, and they one of their nicknames was the Sons of Thunder. These guys wanted to call down just destruction on a town that didn't listen to them. I'm sure they rubbed people up the wrong way on occasion. But if you were one of the 10, would you have been indignant with those two? How dare you guys ask for that special favor? Why? Why? Why were the 10 indignant with the 2? And it's one of 2 reasons usually. The first reason, if we're honest, as part of the 10, is, well, if they're going to get a throne, I should get one too. Fair's fair. We want the places of power, prominence, and position for ourselves. Like, if it's going to be fair, it's going to be fair. Or we mask that idea with this, like nobody should have thrones near Jesus. He is worthy of it all. And so, but that's often pride cloaked as false humility. And so these 10, just like us, indignant. How dare James and John ask for the special position? And Jesus, in the next verse, calls them together, and it's profound what he says. He says, you know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be your slave. Just as the Son of Man, speaking about himself, that was how Jesus referred to himself, just as Jesus did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. Wow. That's like a mic drop verse right there. It is so profound, it's possible to just read through and say, okay, that's amazing, but let's go back to talk about those thrones again. Throughout the Bible, throughout the New Testament, we are clearly shown that there are 2 spiritual kingdoms, and there's no option 3. You can only belong to one or to the other. Both kingdoms have a king. The kingdom of this world is a Bible phrase to refer to a worldly way of doing things, and the ultimate king of this kingdom is the devil himself, who is out for everybody's bad by making them think he's out for everybody's good. And this kingdom of the world has got a certain set of rules and principles, none of which move us forward in the true kingdom that matters. And so Jesus comes, king with the capital K, and his followers are arriving in his in now his teachings, but they come with the mindset of that kingdom. And the principles that apply there, they're like, well, we'll just borrow them and pop them in here now that we're hanging with Jesus. And Jesus says to them, not so with you. In my kingdom, there's a different set of rules that apply. The false kingdom that's out for your long-term bad and destruction, in that world, you get to lord it over people and have authority. That's the definition of greatness in this kingdom, but it's a false illusion. It's a mirage in the desert. In my kingdom, if you want to know what greatness is like, it's the exact opposite of what James and John wanted. If you want to be great in my kingdom, be a servant. Just like he says, I did not come to be served, but I came to serve and laid down my life as a ransom for many. I came by serving to impact the lives of you guys and the rest of mankind. Wow. So I'd like to talk this morning about 4 reasons why serving is so powerful. There's many more. 4 reasons why serving is a small key that opens a big door. First of all, it's what Jesus did. Serving is powerful because it's what Jesus did. Now, Jesus was by far the most powerful person who has ever lived. As the ultimate king of this kingdom, if we trace back to the beginning of the Bible, we see that God created the heavens and the earth, and Jesus was God. Through the words of his mouth, created the heavens and the earth. There's so much power in that to unpack. But I'd like to go to one idea that Jesus speaks about. When he's arrested in the Garden of Gethsemane, he says to his disciples, do you not know I could right now pray to the Father in heaven and he could send 12 legions of angels to be at my disposal. It's just like a small little verse in the story of Jesus' crucifixion. 12 legions of angels. Now, in the Roman army, a legion of angels, a legion of soldiers was 8,000 soldiers. I've got my maths wrong here. 6,000 soldiers. Sorry, I had the wrong number written down. So 12 legions of angels. Jesus is saying, I could call right now and 70,000 angels would be at my disposal. That's power. In the Old Testament, one angel, we read, went and destroyed an entire army overnight of 185,000 people. That's the power one angel has. Jesus says, I could call to the Father for 70,000 angels like that. But do you want to know, if I'm paraphrasing Jesus' words, do you want to know how I define power? It's not by being able to call angels, it's by serving and laying down your life. I, Jesus, the Son of Man, he's saying, came to serve and to give my life. And for every single one of us, there's a portion of the other kingdom that lives in our head and in our heart. Climbing the ladder, advancing ourselves, being able to pay other people to do some of the jobs we don't want to do. That's greatness in our heads. And Jesus says, no, don't get the wrong idea here. Not so with you. You want to be great in my kingdom, learn how to serve yourself. In an extraordinary, different story, Jesus does the job of one of the most menial servants in washing the feet of his followers. And then he says to them, I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. I'm setting you an example of service. So if you want to be a follower of Jesus, let's get out there and serve other people, is in essence his message. This morning when we arrived in the car park, I don't know their names, but there were some legendary Cornerstone people who in the summer heat were busy discussing which of them is going to wear the widest brimmed hat. In fact, I heard one man offering to the other, yeah, you wear the hat, I've got another cap in the car. Out in the car park, helping guide and direct traffic coming in that we could park to be here today. Willing to serve in the African summer heat so that we could benefit and meet together. In Jesus' idea, that's true greatness. Being willing to serve, just help. One of the marks of Christ followers from the time of Jesus up till now is they strive to live a life of serving and looking out for other people. Serving is powerful, secondly, because it develops a sense of purpose and belonging. There's an amazing verse in Ephesians 4, verse 16 that says, from him, Christ, the whole body, referring to the church, grows and builds itself up in love as each part does its work. The strength of a local church and of Christ's church worldwide is that as each part, every person that's a member of that body, as each part does their work, the whole grows. And the stats related to involvement in church worldwide is something like this: 15% of people do the vast majority of the work, and the other 85% arrive and are happy to be part of the services. Wouldn't it be amazing? And I don't know what the stats of Cornerstone are. I know there's a lot of amazing people serving in different ways here. But wouldn't it be great if our mindset was the other way around? If I'm part of a local church, I get to serve. I don't have to, I get to. When I was in grade 8, my family moved from another town to Pietermaritzburg. And I went to, just before they arrived, I started at boarding school in that city. And one of my buddies that I sat next to in grade 8, his name was Stuart. And he said to me, "Why don't you come along to youth with me at our church?" I didn't know what church that was, but I went along there. And as grade 8s do, I was at an all-boys school as well. I did just like us and me and Stuart and our other 2 friends, we just stood there. I didn't know anybody else. But I went back again. And went back again. And then met a few more people. But where things really changed for me, where it went from just attending to being involved, was when I volunteered to get involved, to get connected. Stuck in some way. I joined the youth music team. And I do not have great musical talent. My heart is more willing than my talent is able. And so I noticed every time I was playing as part of the youth music team, they always muted me completely on the monitors and on. And it was quite frustrating, but in retrospect, I see now why. I didn't realize at the time. Some of you guys have the same problem. They mute you when you. But I started to meet other people that I didn't know before. And then I started to interact with the guys that were doing sound at youth. And how does the sound system work? Are these speakers, cables? And learn how to do that. And little by little, over the course of my adult life, as I've served in different aspects of the life of local church, I've met people I wouldn't otherwise meet, built friendships and a sense of belonging that I wouldn't otherwise have had. And I've seen it over and over again that when people have moved from attending to involved, they've got a sense of purpose and a feeling of belonging when they, for example, arrive at church services. What I'm speaking about this morning is obviously way broader than just local church. In our families, if we have a heart to serve the rest of our family members, that's greatness in God's kingdom. In our places of work, our neighborhoods, our communities, our places of friendship and sport, etc., when we go with a heart to serve other people, it develops a sense of purpose and belonging almost greater than anything else. Serving is a fantastic antidote to selfishness. It's a fantastic antidote to feeling disconnected. And serving is a fantastic antidote to self-pity. It was when I'm getting stuck in and involved somewhere, I have less time to ponder those things. I've got purpose. A few years ago, I attended a big church conference in Sydney, Australia. 25,000 people packed into a hired arena. Some of the big name speakers from the US had been flown out there and they preached amazing messages. But probably the best sermon I got there was during one of the sessions when I went to the toilet. And as I was washing my hands, I connected with the guy that seemed to be there cleaning the toilets, an Australian guy. So we got chatting. I said, "How did you come to be at this conference?" He says, "I'm one of the connected churches, but I live in Brisbane." And so I signed up to volunteer at this week. It's a week-long conference. He had paid his own airfare, his own accommodation, and for 5 days was there to serve. And his job on that day was to clean the toilets and make sure that the men's bathroom was clean so that attendees like us from wherever we were could have a pleasant experience. I was there with a mate, a friend from our church, who asked him, do you guys then go for 4 days, you get to sit in the sessions and one day you clean the toilets? He says, "No, we're here to serve the whole week." Something like 2,000 or 3,000 people had volunteered at their own cost to come and serve at this conference. We were blown away. The next year, we had our women's conference at our church. And him and I, my friend and I, came back so excited at this idea of service. We said to Jackson, the rest of the team, if you guys will have us, we'd love to get some men together just to serve behind the scenes, carry the heavy loads, not in the session, but just around and about. So we put it out to the guys. And this friend of mine gets up and he says, guys, in South Africa, we support the green and gold. But if you want to know what green and gold looks like in our local church, it's this volunteer t-shirt. And if you're man enough to wear the green and gold at our women's conference, come and sign up to serve. Over 100 men come to serve at that conference. And the friendship, the sense of purpose and belonging behind the scenes from guys just serving together, profound. Serving is powerful because it develops a sense of purpose and connection. Serving is powerful, thirdly, and this one might surprise you, it's good for my health. Serving is good for one's health. Now, I came across some secular articles on the power of serving. This was not written in local church context. Different studies and stats were mentioned, but these were some of the quotes from these articles that I read. People who volunteered on a regular basis were less likely to develop high blood pressure. Anyone here struggling with high blood pressure? No need to admit. I would encourage serving, according to this article. Now, serving sometimes produces high blood pressure. Serve behind the coffee counter and, man, there's volunteers serving tea and coffee. And there's always somebody who's got a better idea on how it should be done, etc. Or serve in the car park. And a lot of Christians, when they walk out the door, climb in the car to leave the church car park, they forget that they're Christians while in their car. It just, I don't know. So serving, it's not like every moment of service is, there's some difficult, but overall it's good for my physical health. Another quote from that article said this: Gallup poll data is pretty clear. People who regularly provide service to their communities have higher levels of well-being, hands down, referring to emotional and mental health, which of course is good for our physical health. As parents, we see this with our own children. When they just selfishly are living for themselves, as kids are wont to do, we desire that they would look beyond themselves towards blessing other people. And the same thing, the Father in heaven looks down at us and says, man, you want to do stuff that's good for your world? Look out, serve others, lay down your life for other people. Third and final quote, people who volunteer regularly have higher levels of happiness. Service and happiness are irrevocably and powerfully linked. It's an incredible byproduct of living for a purpose bigger than ourselves, is that it's good for our all-round health and well-being. One of the excuses many of us have for not serving somewhere is I don't have time. And one of the authors of an article actually addresses this and says, paradoxically, people who serve, who make the time to serve somewhere, may be creating more time in their life because they'll probably live longer. Now, when Jesus says, serve like I served, he didn't list all of these added benefits. People just observe. Secular stats measure people who serve versus those who don't. These guys are healthier and happier than those. What an amazing added benefit to doing what our King and Lord told us to do in the first place. Which brings me to my final point here, that serving is powerful because it impacts the lives of others. Number one was it's what Jesus did. Number two, it develops a sense of purpose and belonging. Number three, it's good for my health. And number four, it impacts the lives of others. Remember Jesus' words in Matthew 20, verse 28. The Son of Man did not come to serve, but to give his life as a ransom for many. And Jesus, the servant with a capital S, had the greatest impact of any person in the world. And he said the driving heart behind that was, I came to serve people even though they didn't want to know anything about it. I came to lay down my life, and the impact of Jesus' serving we're still talking about today. It was profound and eternity changing. We have a family in our church, mom and dad, 2 daughters who are now both studying, and then their boys in grade 9. And the dad was chatting to me a couple of weeks ago and just commenting on their journey as part of City Hill Church. And he said, we arrived at the church when our girls were very little. And there were a number of different things he was speaking about, saying thank you, but the primary one was this. He says, I can't begin to thank you for the impact that City Hill Kids, our kids ministry, has had on all 3 of our children. Week after week, month after month, and year after year, they've been taught about Jesus and seen other children loving and serving Jesus. One of his daughters leads worship as part of a music team in our church now. Now, I'm not directly involved in City Hill Kids, but our kids have had the same experience. Every Sunday, people volunteering. So as a dad, he is saying, the impact on the lives of my children has been immeasurable of this local church. But I'd like you to put this lens on. That's through the dad's lens. Let's go and put on the lenses of the people serving. When his 21-year-old or 22-year-old daughter, when she was in grade 1, there were volunteers that Sunday willing to spend an hour or 2 of their lives investing into grade 1 children. And our teams run on a roster. It's not every single week. I guess the same would be true here. And I'm pretty sure that on some Sundays, some of those volunteers got up saying, man, this is hard work. Those kids don't listen very well. They are so noisy. And some of the kids just don't pitch up because their parents didn't bring them along this week. But anyway, I'm just going to serve. You see, the serving in the small run, the individual Sunday with the grade 1 girls might not feel like a whole lot, but like bricks that are laid down form a great big wall. The power of serving is that when it's done consistently over years, it has a huge impact that all these years later, a dad is saying to me that the impact on my kids is immeasurable. We could roll that out on all the children that have been through our kids program. I heard of a cartoon strip, Peanuts cartoon strip, where Schroeder is sitting there watching his favorite TV show. And Lucy walks in and changes the channel to what she wants to watch. So Schroeder says to Lucy, what makes you think you can walk in here and change things to suit yourself? So Lucy looks sternly at him and holds up an open hand like this and then makes a fist. And she says, these 5 fingers. Taken individually, they aren't much. But when I squeeze them together, they become a powerful force to be reckoned with. So Schroeder meekly says, okay. And the end of the cartoon strip is he's looking at his own hand saying, why can't you guys work together like that? And just like our individual fingers, we might feel our service and our involvement all by itself, like what difference could I make? But the power of serving in a local church and in our families and in our places of work and our places of influence, it just takes a few people to get together with a common goal and a common purpose. And it's profound, the long-term impact that we can have on the lives of other people. There's a lady in our church whose name is Nadine. She's a grandmother. I would say she's now in her mid-60s. And 10 years ago, we were looking for somebody to head up our non-profit organization that sits under our church umbrella. It's called Nation Changes. And at that time, Nation Changes was kind of operating out of 2 shipping containers that were on our property and doing some good. But if you look at the amount of opportunity and need in our country to do good in those areas of social justice, it's huge. And we had one person that was involved with Nation Changes, a half day, working mornings only for a week, each week. And so I approached Nadine and I said to her, we'd love you to come and take over the leadership of Nation Changes. In other words, you become that person because the other person was leaving. And after 1 week on the job as paid staff leading Nation Changes, She asked if she could have a meeting with me, which isn't usually good news when somebody's just been 1 week employed. And she sat down in my office and she said, my husband and I have been talking, and there is such great need and opportunity that instead of you giving me a salary, I'd like to work free of charge. I want to volunteer my time. Through my husband's business, he'll support me. And I want to volunteer, and could we rather take this salary and employ a second person to do what I've been doing? She said, I've just got one big fear in having this conversation with you, is that when you think of me going forward, if you say yes to this plan, and when you think of me, you'll just think of me as a volunteer, not a staff member, whatever that was in her head. She was like, I still want to have to apply for leave. That was how she put it. I still want to be part of this team, Monday through Friday. She's a fairly quietly spoken lady with a heart and vision that are huge, 5 fingers working together. In the last 10 years, I don't have the exact stats, but our Nation Changers staff has grown to be 6 or 7 people. Each week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday morning, we have, I would guess, about 80 people in our church who volunteer different blocks of time to come through and be part of what she's doing. They outgrew the 2 shipping containers, and we needed to build a distribution warehouse for them of about 400 square meters. They've outgrown that and are hiring off-site premises. The projects that have been started have had huge impact. We're part of a Bible reading, literacy programs. Grade 1 to 4 in local schools around us, we've got teams that are involved in that. With some of the problems of unemployment that many people in our country face, we came up with borrowed an idea with an amazing tie together where clothing is donated into our clothing box shop, and we on-sell it to entrepreneurs who are willing to go and on-sell it further. They make about a 400% markup on what they get the clothing at. It's my favorite room in our whole facility. All the clothing is on racks. It's got price tags on it, and the shoppers are screened. We've had about 150 people be part of that program that are entrepreneurs running their own small businesses who need to come and choose their stock, pay for it up front, and then go on sell it. They taught basic bookkeeping skills to keep track of their finances. Food has gone out, infrastructure development in working with other NPOs around us. In the 2024 calendar year, the amount of finances that channeled through Nation Changers in actual cash or goods in kind, when totaled, was more than 9 million rand just last year of doing good that's going out. And just 10 years ago, it was one lady working mornings only out of 2 shipping containers. And at the heart of Nadine's world is a heart to serve. For the last 10 years, every single week she has been there volunteering and serving. And multiple times has said to me, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I'm like, that's the wrong way around. Thank you for how much you've done with a heart of serving. Just one Nadine by herself can only do so much, but combined with many other people who have a similar heart, that is one of the things where people have served in the life of our church. Serving is powerful because it's what Jesus did. Serving is powerful because wherever it's done, it develops a sense of purpose and belonging. Serving is powerful because it's good for my health. And serving is powerful, finally, because it impacts the lives of others. Please, would you stand with me? When Marcus invited me to preach here, he didn't give me this topic and say, man, Cornerstone's really bad at this, please come in. But just what I felt God put on my heart. And my prayer for all of us is that we would have had a revelation this morning of how serving is a small key that opens big doors. And at some level, all of us can increase our heart and willingness to serve, regardless of whether we're really serving or not.